so excited to be here. So I want to wait for like just a few minutes to let some people get on here, but I also want to respect your time and our other vendors' times, and I got a lot of stuff to go over here in a limited amount of time. So I am going to kind of start with a general introduction of what we're doing, and hopefully other people will, people I'm sure will shuffle in and out while this is happening. Hi Pam. So anyhow, my name is Erin James, and I am here. I'm from Crafty Housewife Yarns and My Local Wool, and I'm here to teach you today. The title of our class is Learn to Spin Yarn on a Drop Spindle, and I'm super excited about teaching you that. So what I'm mainly wanting you to get out of this is I'm assuming everybody here is probably either a knitter, a crocheter, a weaver, a macrameer, if that's the right word. We all have yarn crafts and passions and hobbies already, I'm assuming, if you are here. So what I'm hoping what we can do is I can help you deepen your love, if you even think that's possible, of your craft and what you're doing. Help you deepen your understanding, because by really breaking down the basic supply of yarn, by teaching you how to make it and design it. And it's so fun. It's so fun. It's the most dangerous rabbit hole there is out there, I tell you. So I'm hoping, and also by deepening your enjoyment of your yarn craft, I'm hoping that you will also get the great side effects I have found from spinning, which are relaxation, a better understanding of sustainable supplies, which I think we can all agree is a great thing. So really plugging you into sustainability, community, and also, like I said, relaxation and just a creative release. And I'll get more into that here in a minute. But I know so many people, and definitely me included, I'm assuming if you're in this, you already fall into this camp. You have this feeling of like you're a creative person or you're an artist, and then if you're like me, you can't draw a stick figure. So you may have had like a lifetime of aggravation with that. And I really feel that this is some way where that becomes like a pent up, like I want to be an artist and I want to be a creator and a maker, but everything I do comes out weird. That's how I always felt. So once you're able to get that going and get that out, I found it incredibly cathartic. So I know you're like, man, I thought we were going to have a drop spindle class and this chick's going off on a tangent here. But I promise all of those things come from learning to spin yarn. And a drop spindle, let me show you, a drop spindle, and this is the one I learned on, is it's the easiest way to get into spinning. So my passion for spinning is on either a wheel or a drop spindle, but a drop spindle is the easiest way, the path of least resistance to get you into that. So that's what I'm going to teach you. And you can even make a drop spindle, but it's easier to buy a drop spindle. So that's what we're going to be going over today. And I feel like most people fall into two camps here of you're either what in the world is a drop spindle? So raise your hand. You may be the what in the world, thank you. You may be the what in the world is a drop spindle person, or you may be the, what I feel like most people are of, I have used one, seen one, experienced either a spindle or spinning wheel at like a guild or a yarn shop or your friend, whatever, and you have decided that you are not that coordinated, you are not artsy, you're not good at those things, you know, the laundry list of things we all tell ourselves that I've told myself. And, or you have one problem I found, and I promise I'm not throwing other teachers under the bus. I feel like a lot of people traditionally with spinning can put off the impression to people that if you don't follow these strict rules of like, it's got to be this fiber type spun this way and to make this yarn, and then it's perfect. And if you don't do that, then, you're not doing it right. And luckily, I was never good at being told I couldn't do things right, and I just do them anyway. But I know for a lot of people, feeling like they're not doing something right, and people are going to think badly of them, it is a big roadblock. So that's the second roadblock I feel like people run into. And the third was just, what I'm really wanting to do is help you in all my teaching. I have courses, and this isn't my first rodeo with teaching. My approach is let's embrace the process, not perfection. Because I just saw somebody post on here about embracing the mental health aspects of spinning. as well as just the crafting. I'm all about that. And so it's the process is the important part, not the perfection of the final outcome. So please hold on to that. If you take nothing else from this, it's the process. So you may want to know, like I said, this is my drop spindle, and I am going to show you here how to work. This is some roving wool. We're going to turn this, and I'll show you some different examples of supplies, but you might want to know what qualifies me to be standing here teaching you this, how I became the crazy yarn lady. And I became the crazy yarn lady more after I became the crazy small business lady. And I've basically had a lifelong love between working in fine art galleries and promoting artists that way. Working in small businesses has always been my love. I have never fit in good with a big corporation and, you know, really buttoned down official jobs. Even when I tried it, like they kicked me out. It didn't work good for me. And I just have an immense love of small businesses, family businesses, small farms. And so that's what's got me here. So speaking of small farms, you know, when you get into spinning, you get to learn about different types of sheep and the wool and all the things that this came from a small farm, and a farmer friend sent this to me. And so it just opens a whole Pandora's box. So like I mentioned earlier, all right, I'm going to grab my wool. I always felt like a creative person, and even my dear husband is a good artist, and everybody I knew was an artist, and I was not an artist, and it was very aggravating for me. So learning to spin really helped me with that. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, and so if you have a drop spindle and some fiber, this is the part where you grab it. And like I said, I'm sorry if I'm trying to keep this within time, so I will go back and tell more fun stories later, but I do definitely want to actually show you some spinning. So this is a drop spindle, and they come in lots of different shapes and sizes. I have a YouTube channel with a video about a bunch of different drop spindles, so you can go find those there. I will not take your time here. And this is some wool. So when you have yarn, it actually, and I'm not trying to like patronize anybody by telling you it comes from wool most of the time, but this is roving wool, and this particular one is off a Romney sheep. And you can, like I said, I have lots of courses. You can go on, or I can go on, all day about different fiber types. Some have longer or shorter fibers, which is important to know because when you are thinking about designing your final outcome for yarn, you know, or if you're a beginner versus, you know, you're trying different things, spinning the different fiber lengths or fiber textures really, that's important. And like I said, I wish I could run on at the mouth about that forever right now, but I cannot. So I'm just going to tell you that this is called roving wool, and it is basically sheep wool off of a Romney sheep that's been run through a milling process and then of course dyed this lovely shade of blue. And so all the fibers are all going one way. And many people, one of the most common fiber preps that you would purchase is a dyed braid, and this is one of my favorites, so everybody can ooh and ah at it. So this is a dyed braid, or sometimes fiber can come in what's called a fiber bat, and this is off of a drum carder, but as you see, it's the same. This one's really textured and cool. So you see the fun here as you can get into all the textures and colors. I know, right? But the idea is, see, all the fibers are going one way, and then on this one, if you unbraid this bad boy, sorry, this one's big, you would unbraid these, and then see, once again, all the fibers are going in one direction. So I'm showing you that for comparison's sake. And then the Icelandic sheep wool from the farmer, this has been sort of, the locks are still in this. If you're not so into colors and you want natural wool, you can, once you start spinning, you can get into where you get the natural wool and you can card it out yourself and get all the fibers going in one direction. And you can even leave in your spinning, purposely leave some of these beautiful little locks. So you see, I can just really go to town on that. But I have promised to teach you how to spin. So the first thing you want to do is, actually, you're not even going to hold the spindle. The first thing I make people do in my drop spindle class is we have to become one with the fiber. And I always joke about that. But it's called drafting. Drafting is when and this is called pre-drafting, because we're doing it before we're spinning it, so it's pre-drafting. So you're going to go through, and most people I feel like start with a braid. So if you had a braid or a bat or whatever, you're going to go through and pull it into, I call this stripping it out. I don't know if that's the technical term, but I call it stripping it out. So you would pull it into like kind of longer strips like so. And then you take your strips. So, I've got some different colors here. This is just some scrap wool. Usually they would be longer if you were coming off of a braid. So that's stripping, stripping your wool. And then I'm going to go through, and drafting is where you're pulling it up. Basically what you're trying to do is loosen up the fiber. So, and this is where the different fiber lengths come into play, because you want to pull it to where it could almost come apart. Like if you pull it too far, it comes apart. But if you want to pull it to where it could almost come apart, but it's not coming apart, it's still holding together. So you can see how you can see some more light coming through it. Pre-drafting is like the #1 tip for beginner spinners, because, and this was my biggest mistake, was I didn't pre-draft, so I made rope. So that's, my first yarn was not yarn, it was rope. And I have pictures somewhere. I'm not joking, y'all. It was like the size of my thumb. I just pretty much took the roving and added twist and was like, cool, it's rope. So pre-draft, so you don't make rope unless that's what you want. And so the first thing we're going to do, and the one thing about drop spinning is the hardest part is the beginning. And then once you get past the beginning, then it's much easier. So just take a deep breath and go with me on this. It's not hard. So you're going to take, this is a top whirl drop spindle, meaning the whirl is on the top. It's just got a little hook. So, and we're going to do, here, you may have creative camera angles of me. We're going to be in between spinning. I'm going to be sticking it under my armpit like so. If you're sitting down, you could stick it between your knees, but I'm standing up, so I'm going to stick it over here. So that's called the park and draft method, which I get more into, like I said, where you see people letting it spin all the way down in my course or YouTube videos. So the first thing you're going to do is take your little hook and take your pre-drafted wool, and you're going to slip it, just make like a little sandwich. So you're going to make a little sandwich right here, and your sandwich on the hook, and then you stick it under your armpit so it doesn't go anywhere. Then you just fold the wool onto itself like a little sandwich and keep it on the hook. And then you're just going to start twisting. And you're not going to care. Write that down. You're not going to care that it looks funny right here. It doesn't matter. So just twist it. It's totally fine if it looks funny. And basically what we're doing now is the twist is the glue. The twist is the glue that holds the fiber together. So you twist it, and what we're doing now is and then stick it under your armpit and just kind of, see how I'm letting the twist run up there? We're just trying to make enough length so that we can wrap it around this base and pull it back up. So we're just going to twist and just kind of, get it to where it's doing. And see, this is totally not pretty. It's not pretty. It's fine. When you get long enough thing, you're going to bring it down. And then you might have to kind of take your thumb to get it going. But the idea is you're going to bring it down, wrap it one time around the bottom, and then bring it back up and just stick it under the hoop. That, my friend, is the hardest part. So that's what you do. It's not a big deal. I will show you one more time. You made here it's trying to pop off. If it pops off, you can just stick the hook back through, as you see. All we did was made a sandwich, added some twist so that it made some kind of like funky looking knotty yarn right here. Bring it down behind your hook like so, and then wrap it one time around the base like that, and then bring it back up and rehook it. So now you've done that, you're off to the races. So like I said, the twist is the glue that holds the fibers together, and the drafting is where you pull it apart. How's the best way to describe that? Basically, the more you pull it apart, the finer you draft it, the thinner your yarn's going to be. And that you kind of work up to. Some people right out of the gate spin super thin yarn. As I shared, me right out of the gate, I spun rope. So you may fall on either of those extremes, and the first yarn you make is going to be hideous, so just accept that. Even though I have seen a few people that were just really annoying and made beautiful yarn right away. That was not me. So I tell everybody, the first yarn you're going to make is going to be hideous, but just make it. And then save it. I wish I'd saved mine, because you can take it out and show it to people later. So all we're going to do is, this is like an engine. So make sure you pinch up here, because the number one rule is, this is the fluffy part is your fiber supply. The twisty part is the yarn, and your fingers are like the gatekeeper that you don't want the twist to run into the fluffy part before you want it to. So make sure you got the pinch. The pinch is important. So you pinch, and then whichever way you start spinning, whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise, you got to keep going that way. So I always go clockwise. So I spin it clockwise, and you see it gets springy. That's the energy that we've loaded into this from the engine here, basically. And then for the park and draft method, which is what I always teach everybody on first, you stick it under your armpit, then you take your other hand, and we're going to pinch right here. So see, we've pinched. Now I've moved this hand. It's like a magic trick. So this hand, like I said, here is holding the pinch. So we got the twisty part, the fluffy part, and then this hand, all I'm going to do is, this is where the pre-drafting came in, I'm not really having to do too much because I already pre-drafted it, but you kind of pull the fibers apart, and then I'm going to pinch up here. So see, I got a pinch, a fluffy part, and I got another pinch. Let go when you want to, and see the twist magically runs up your fiber supply to this finger. And then you pinch, move your hand again, and then I'm going to pinch up here, and then let go. And see, it magically runs up there, so I'm going to have to step back. I'm going to pinch, pull it back. This is the drafting. Pinch here, and then that's about all the twist. You see, I've depleted the energy that was in that twist, and if it starts, so then you have to twist some more if it starts coming apart. All you're going to do then is just unhook it, and here, I'll turn this so you can see, and I'm just winding the yarn we just made back onto the drop spindle. And you want to leave enough of a tail so that you can pull it up and hook it again. So load it down here where your yarn supply is going to be, and then bring it back up, and then we just repeat this process. So then you twist, 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 until it looks, sufficiently twisty. There's no magic number there. Stick it there, take your hand, pinch, and then you're just gonna then pinch up here. And I always kind of smooth with my fingers. I feel like that makes me feel better anyhow. And then pinch, pull this out, pinch again, and then you can see the twist, it just runs up there. My kids think it's super cool. And then pinch, and we're about out of twist here. So that's as much twist, it's all run up there as we can. I'm just going to unhook and then wind it down onto here. And so you're probably wondering, well, Erin, what do you do when you run to the end of this and you got to attach more fiber? It's totally fine. I'll show you. You get the twist going. Oh, and also inevitably at some point in time, if you're not paying attention, your fiber supply is going to get hooked by this and it's going to look funny for a second. Just untwist it and get your fiber supply back. Don't panic. But that inevitably happens to all of us. So you're going to twist, put it here, and then you're like, oh no, I gotta add some more fiber on here. Well, grab some more fiber that you pre-drafted, and all you're going to do is, like I said, the fluffy parts are like Velcro, and the twist is like glue. So all you're going to do is, I'm short, I'm sorry. I got short arms. It makes doing this difficult. You take the fluffy part here, and then you're going to take this fluffy part and stick it there, and you just put them next to each other. That's all I'm doing. Just put them next to each other, and then just hold them together, and see, you do the awkward thing with your hand there. Then get more twist going, and when the twist runs up here, they hold on to each other, and boom, connected. So these are some little pieces here I'm doing. And everybody, you kind of get to where you have your perfect size fiber supply. Like some people like to have a bigger amount, some people like to have a smaller amount. So That's what I'm saying, is you just got to do the process. You just got to do it until you find, like, I'm holding my hand this way. You might like holding your hand this way. You know, everybody kind of gets their own way, or sitting versus standing, that they like doing it. And so you just kind of have to do it until you figure out what way you like to do that. But that's how you connect fiber with any fiber. So here, I'm just going to twist, stick it under my arm, pinch. See, if you pull too hard and it comes apart, it's fine. You just put the little fluffy part back together, let it run together. And I'm purposely doing kind of a thicker yarn here because I want you to be able to see it on camera. Pinch, pull, pinch, pull, run together. And like I said, so drop spindle spinning is obviously much more stop and start, because you have to keep, you know, twisting and then parking, you know, twisting and then spinning and twisting and then spinning. And I don't even know what time it is. I don't know if I'm running late or not. Let's see what, oh, okay, it is 12:20. So I will slow down a little bit. I was afraid I was going to totally run out of time here. So now we can hang out and talk. So, like I said, this is a drop spindle and how that would work. And I do have a YouTube channel with like a bajillion spinning videos on it. Excuse me, I need some water. This is a little tiny spinning wheel. So this one, it's the same idea, where the yarn wraps around bobbins here, and then you pedal it with your feet down here. And so then that makes the flyer head spin. So the beauty of a spinning wheel is that you, once you get the knack of it, and I actually think it might be a little, is you have a continuous spin. So you're not having to like twist and then draft and then twist and then draft. You are just spinning. You just draft and your feet do that. Link to YouTube. It is Crafty Housewife Yarns, and I'm sure somebody, one of the admins here, will drop a link to that. But if you go to YouTube and just type in Crafty Housewife Yarns, you'll find me. And this little wheel is the Spinolution Polywog, which I personally like. I am a one of the top dealers, as well as kind of the education department for a lot of them, for Spinolution wheels. So there are tons of different spinning wheels. And just like people, like different brands may suit different people different ways. I love these. They're very ergonomic. They're made in America, you know, American wood. So they fit in with all my other loves. So if you have any questions about that particular type, and there's a bunch of videos about them on my YouTube channel, feel free to ask. But there are a bunch of different brands. So, you know, don't feel that you have to be biased to those, but I am. So anyway, that little guy's the Polywog. They, of course, come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. But I just kind of wanted to show you the difference between a drop spindle and a, you know, a drop spindle versus a spinning wheel, as far as how the actual spinning mechanism would go. See, it doesn't matter which direction you wrap the yarn on the spindle compared to, oh, I was one of those, let's see, so I'm spinning clockwise, and oh, you are right, excellent question. I load the twist on clockwise, and I'm wrapping the yarn on my spindle no, I'm doing that clockwise too. So clockwise for me is just the way that it goes. So I don't think it would hurt if you did it the other way, but that's just how I always do it. I load the twist on clockwise, and then I am loading the yarn on the spindle base clockwise as well. Excellent question. And let's see, the one thing, so basically that's what you do. You just continue along doing this, you know, parking and drafting and pulling it out until you have filled up your, see, and it's so fun. The twist just runs right up. And if you get to a part where it's like it's starting to come apart on you, that just means you need more twist. So it's not a big deal. You just stick more twist in there, and it, there you go. So you can just continue to draft it out that way. And then you just continue doing this until your spindle is all loaded up on the bottom, or you run out of wool. And then you just would, to take it off, you would then just take the end and just wrap it. And like I said, I have a YouTube video for this too. It's easy though. You're just gonna, I'd throw this little guy in like a shoebox so he doesn't run across the floor. And you just take the end of the yarn and just wrap like an old school ball, or if you have like a skein winder, you can just do it onto that. And it just spins right off the bottom of this. So that is drop spinning in a nutshell. If anybody has any specific questions, I am happy to answer it for you. But like I said, the main takeaways you need is, like I said, just you want to keep your pinch. So pinch, twist, part, take your other finger, pinch, and then you don't release the pinch until you are, you're drafting and you're ready. And you can do it in just like little tiny sections if you want. Pinch, run, and it runs right up there. Pinch, run, pinch, run. And see, it's like some halfway decent looking yarn. It's like a good worsted weight right there. And then you're just gonna wrap it back onto your spindle. So you can also, as you're learning and getting better, one thing, if you may see people on YouTube where it's, it looks like they're spinning and the spindle is just going down. I don't like to teach people how to do it that way because it's more confusing. It's, just harder to learn on, but the way you would do that, and of course, like I said, and y'all don't judge me if I'm doing this and the spindle drops, it's called a drop spindle for a reason, so, no judgment. But it's the same idea, and I show this in my drop spindle course too. And I do prefer it this way, where you get it spinning, and then instead you just let it continue to spin, and then you can use two hands to draft. And it just goes, you can see, down towards the floor. So, and I find it easier to get finer yarn doing it that way. I don't use the park and draft method that I teach on. See how that yarn looks really fine. I don't use that method. That could talk about different weights of spindles. I do have a whole video on that. The weight, and that's an excellent question, Judy, the weight of the spindle will, if you really get into doing it, determine, if you're wanting to do real fine yarn, then obviously you're not going to want a real heavy spindle, because the weight of the spindle would pull apart, the really fine yarn while you were doing it. So for like shorter fibers like cotton or alpaca, you would want a medium to lightweight spindle, even though, see, I'm getting that really fine. For chunkier yarn, if like chunky, bulky art yarn's more your jam, and see, I'm not even looking at the spindle. All I'm doing is just pinching and pulling down, see the drafting from my fiber supply. My spindle had actually kind of quit spinning. That's my other one big tip, is when you start doing it that way and where you're just letting it spin instead of stopping, is don't look at your spindle. When I first started doing that, and most people are, you get obsessed with the idea of like, oh God, is it spinning? Oh, is it spinning? You keep staring at the spindle and then like freaking out and trying to keep it going. Don't look at the spindle. Just get it spinning, and then this is where it comes into the mental health. You have to just trust that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and then you just ignore it, and you can't obsess or freak out about it, and you just work on the drafting part. And see, my spindle is just kind of hanging. The weight of the spindle is what's pulling on this to help with the tension, to help the twist run up. And like, once again, I'm short, so I can't do this for too long, but you can literally, and this is my favorite way to drop spindle, is just let it spin, and I just pull a little pinches at a time out of the fiber supply until it either drops and breaks and then I connect it again, or it hits the floor and then I just wind it on the bottom. Have you ever used a Navajo spindle? I have, actually. Like I said, I should have gotten a link for this video. I have a little Navajo spindle. I really like Navajo spindles. Have kind of like a 3-prong situation, and they are really good for lace weight yarns or fine yarns, because they have a really, some different designs of drop spindles spin. They keep a rotation easier than others. Navajo ones are great. And for example, floor spindle, I conveniently have this giant one, which is a floor spindle, sitting right next to me. And the way this one works is when you're sitting, it goes in like a little dish, and you spin it on your leg, And it's the same thing, it's just on the floor. So actually I have a video comparing the little spinning wheel I just showed you to that floor spindle I just showed you, on kind of pros and cons on, you know, which one might be better for you. But there's so many different types of spindles. And how do you finish a fiber supply then? Like, what do you have when you're, well, when you're done spinning, you're just going to end up with a bunch of yarn loaded on your spindle. And like I said, this is just a very basic 1-ply yarn. You can 2-ply. That's such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that. If you would prefer have 2-ply yarn, which I feel like a lot of people do, or if you spun it really thin and you want it thicker, you would spin basically two single plies. So you could either split your fiber supply, you know, split the yarn in half so you have like 2 little balls, or spin like one of these and then spin another one of these. Just, you want to have 2 balls, and then you can 2-ply it. That my drop spindle course, but I can tell you the general idea is that you get the 2 balls. I recommend putting it in a shoebox, and then you can take the 2 strands, and you're pretty much repeating the process but with the 2 strands, but you're going, so if you went clockwise, you'd go counterclockwise. And I mean, it's pretty basic. You can see how it's working. It's twisting the 2 strands together, and then you end up with the 2-ply yarn loaded down here, and then you can just take it straight off your spindle and knit or crochet or weave with it. So like I said, there's lots of different ways you can kind of finish it off. If it's overly twisty, you can wet it and stretch it out over like the back of a chair back. Like I said, my course, I can't put everything in here because I'll be on here all day. You know, goes into details on like how to finish it, how to take it off, how to 2-ply, actually how to chain ply, which it's not for the faint of heart on a drop spindle, but it can be done. And so I show you how to chain ply on a drop spindle too. And some people, I just wanted to show y'all an introduction to spinning. You may be like, I'm totally into spinning, but I don't know if I want to drop spindle for the rest of forever. Pretty much once you drop spindle, I started drop spindling, was like, I need a wheel right now. So that was how that went with me. And then I got back into drop spindling, actually, when I started teaching this course locally. And so I had to brush up my drop spindle skills. And I actually, after I'd gone from drop spindle to the wheel back to drop spindle, I got much more out of drop spindling then. So some people are all about drop spindle. They start drop spindling, they love it, that's their jam. Other people, like myself, you start drop spindling, you're like, this is amazing, I want to do this, but I want to do more and faster and bigger. And so then you need, either a bigger spindle or a spinning wheel for it. And then you may migrate back to drop spindling for relaxation, travel, if learned to not put my spindle in timeout for too long. Yeah. That's true. They're also fun. Like I said, I do take my little spinning wheel with me to many places, but sometimes I just take this. And like if you got to go get the oil changed in your car, you can chunk this in your purse with some fiber, and then you can be like the weird lady with a drop spindle at the car dealership. Maybe that's just me. So like I said, I wasn't sure how much time we had left. I'm happy to answer questions. Like I said, this is pretty much the live fast approach to teaching you. I'm so glad that everybody looks like they're enjoying it. My drop spindle course is the same teacher, obviously, and the same technique, but it's broken into smaller individual videos so that you can go in and, be like, let me see how she stuck that on the hook, and you can do that. Watch just that. You're not having to go in and like find your place. It's all broken into sections so that you can really go over each skill individually. So I am, of course, happy for you to learn off of this. My YouTube channel, I have more free videos, but if you're really interested in doing it, I do recommend my drop spindle course, just because it's broken into like proven sections that you can replay easily, so you can keep redoing it. So that's drop spindle. I also have spinning wheel courses, and like I said, I'm going to keep spinning, and y'all can ask me questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I'd had people touch on here. I'm going to switch colors here. Have found difficulty with consistent tension. Consistent tension on a drop spindle or a spinning wheel there, Lori? Because if consistent tension on a spinning wheel, you might want to adjust your gears. Consistent tension on a drop spindle, you might need more or less twist or more or less pre-drafting if you're doing it. Where can we get your course? I think the staff here is posting a bunch of links, so I'll post links or they'll post links. It's on my website. And I've got some, and stick around, I have coupons and discounts and all sorts of excitement. So those will be getting posted, or they're posting them now, whichever. So those will be posted there, but you can find my courses there. But yeah, for tension, like I said, for consistency, I would say pre-drafting, maybe pre-draft a little bit more, because that's usually where you'll get people with like a long, thin one, and then you get like a bump. What usually happens with the bump is that you got to a part that wasn't pre-drafted, or maybe the wool was a little tangly, and so then while the twist was traveling, because it wasn't smooth there, you're like, and so that's how you end up with a bump. So the pre-drafting really helps with, and just a good fiber supply really helps with having that run up smoothly. And I mean, all hand spun yarn, in my opinion, is slightly thick and thin. That's just kind of the nature of hand spun yarn. But if you aren't wanting extreme thick and thin portions, pre-drafting is definitely what you want. Trying to learn to spin, spin lace. Well, if you want to spin really fine yarn, you're going to want lots of twist, probably and if you're on a spinning wheel, you're going to want a smaller gear ratio in the back, which just means that the flyer head goes around faster. And so on a drop spindle, that would mean that you needed a lot of twist on your light little spindle. So that's how that would translate. And then you're going to definitely, for thinner yarn, the name of the game with thinner yarn is you're just, instead of letting the twist run into a larger fiber supply for thin yarn, you're going to want to pull it as fine as you can pull it, while the twist will still stay in there. You're on a spindle. I would recommend for lace weight yarn, really thin yarn, get something with a longer fiber length. BFL has a really nice long, it's blue-faced Lester. It's a really nice long fiber length. Corridel, this Romney's nice. I'd say Corridel or BFL would be really good to learn to do the thinner yarn, because with the longer fiber hairs in it, you can pull it thinner before it breaks. Whereas if you're dealing with like a bunch of little short ones, you can't pull it as far. So long fibers will be your friend for lace weight. And that's actually a good segue into my original tangent on, like I said, I got into spinning. I'd always been very frustrated that I felt like an artistic person and could not draw or paint or do any of those things that all my other friends that were artistic people could do. I started knitting in college, and I was a terrible knitter, but I eventually got better, and knitting became a real, I really enjoyed the creative process, and I found we did talk about mental health on it. I have had anxiety issues for as long as I can remember. And so knitting, and I'm sure a lot of people could say this about crochet or weaving or anything else, it gives you, or at least for me, it gave me like a safe thing to, when my mind started wandering to things it didn't need to wander to. Having a project or even just a project I could think about planning, gave my mind like a safe place to go to, because you'd be like, okay, I want to knit a sweater. Okay, I'm going to get this kind of yarn, and then you can start thinking about that instead of what you shouldn't be stressing out about. So for me, learning to spin just made that even better, because then instead of thinking, I'm going to make a sweater, I'm going to make it this sweater with this yarn and this color, I could then take it even further, being like, I'm going to make the yarn for the sweater, and I want this type of yarn, so I'm going to spin it this way, and I can use this type of wool, so it furthered that for me. So the creativeness was very helpful to me that way. I started spinning during my second pregnancy with my second daughter, which I did not have particularly easy pregnancies either time, so I did not do much sleeping, especially for that one. And that's when I was already a knitter, like I said, and that's when I started spinning. And so since I wasn't sleeping, I was up at weird times watching Wes Anderson movies and messing around with a spinning wheel. And so that's how I learned to spin, was just not sleeping and staying up and being uncomfortable and making lots of funny looking yarn. But it gave me something safe to think about, and it took my mind off being very physically uncomfortable and feeling sick, and it made me feel a lot better. And so that was kind of how the obsession for that started with me. And what's my favorite type of wool to spin? Oh, that's such a hard question. I like so many different types. We use a lot of Cordell, I use a lot of Romney, and merino is what a lot of people like because it's very soft, if you'll realize that from merino sweaters. And so, yeah, it's very hard to pick one. How do you stop spinning and then come back to it? Oh, that is an excellent question I never think to address. So since they're telling me I have to get off here in 5 minutes anyway, it's a good time for that. So when you're done spinning and you want to, you got to go do something else, you can pretty much just set it down. So, and the one little tail there will kind of do that, but you can just set it down on your counter just like that. And then when you want to start spinning again, you just pick it up and you can look at it and be like, okay, this part has twist, this part doesn't have twist. And so then you can kind of find where you're at, reload it, and then you just start twisting again. So you can pretty much twist, and then you just stop twisting and lay it down, and then you can pick it up and you can find where you're starting again. So, like I said, it will kind of untwist a little bit right there on the end, but then you just start twisting there again. But anyway, I know they're posting a bunch of stuff. I would love for you to, if you would like to know more about spinning, like I said, please, find me somewhere and ask me questions. I have a good deal on my course with a coupon that how do you add plies together. I don't have time. It's 5 minutes are almost up here. It's in my course, how to 2-ply it together. Basically, you make 2 balls of singles, and then you tie the singles together on the hook, and then twist it the other way, and then you can load it back on there. So that's how you do that. I'm so glad everybody's excited. I'm so glad everybody's had a good time. And like I said, as you see, I could go on about this forever, but if you would like to learn, or you've tried to learn in the past and haven't, I would love to be your teacher. Like I said, and remember, it's the process, not perfection. And I've got plenty of courses, and we have fiber subscriptions. Because, I guess all the other vendors are getting on here and selling things. I don't have anything I'm showing you right now. So I have courses. We have monthly fiber subscriptions. So if you're like, I want some of those bats or braids, you can get some of those where they magically show up every month. And those are easy to cancel at any time. So it just helps us plan. So yeah, and like I said, that's my other passion that I've run out of time to tell you about, is connecting people who are yarn lovers and spinners with the supplies. To me are so important, that they come from small artists, small business, American farms where, the sheep aren't being abused. That's what Crafty Housewife Yarns and My Local Wool, like, that is our thing. So that's, like I said, I could go on forever on that. Please look into finding the supplies. It's just like finding the yarn. It's half the fun, if not more of the fun. So make sure we can help connect you with supplies from small farms, small artists, American business, so that it brings a whole new level of handmade to whatever your handmade project already is. And so yeah, everybody, I have to go now, but please, my Facebook group, if you would like to hear me ramble more and meet all my friends that we hang out with all the time, that I think half of them are in here right now anyway, is Handspun Yarn Love. So just put in Handspun Yarn Love in Facebook, and you will find our group. And we are the nicest, coolest fiber arts group, I think, on Facebook. So come find us, Handspun Yarn Love. Go buy a course. Go find some fiber. I will see you later.